Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to interview Eric Ang, the founder of IvyCollegeAdmit, a consultancy geared towards helping students be admitted to highly selective institutions. Today, we're talking about what Ivy League admissions will look like this fall. Eric, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jackson. Excited to share some insights about college admissions.
Great. So to start off, do you believe it's going to be harder for this year's seniors to be admitted to the Ivies and other selective institutions, as schools like Harvard are reporting that 20% of first-year students have deferred admission?
I think that's a great question. And I think this really hinges on many different things. The biggest factor being the current state of the pandemic. Because imagine if tomorrow we come up with a vaccine and everything's good, then absolutely, I think the acceptance rates will be much lower because, as you rightly stated, 20% of the incoming class deferred their admissions. If this pandemic drags on for the next 3 years, who's to say next year's class won't also defer their admission, right? And so, we have this one-off effect, Jackson. And I think given the current trajectory of COVID, it's likely that next year's class may defer their admissions as well. And so we won't really see too much of an impact there because of those counter effects. But what I really want to look at, if you just look at last year's data, for instance, actually all the acceptance rates at the Ivies rose, except for Princeton. Okay, so Brown, Harvard, Dartmouth, all those acceptance rates actually ticked up slightly, and due to the applicant pool. So what I'm really interested in is really possibly the economic impact of COVID for this year, because fewer low-income students will be able to apply. And so I'm actually forecasting a continued increase, a slight increase in acceptance rates.
Okay, great. So I know that all of the Ivies aren't requiring students to submit SAT and ACT scores this year. So for those who have not taken a test yet, there might not be that many who haven't taken a test yet, but for those that have not taken one, should they still?
Absolutely. I get this trend toward being test optional due to COVID this year. And also many of these universities in the past, they always said that these exams penalize low-income students and favor upper middle-class students. And so I think a lot of universities are going toward this trend that you don't need to take these exams anymore. But from an admission standpoint and behind closed doors, I can tell you that the more data that you provide to the admissions committee, the better. If you compare apples to apples, a student who does have a 1550 on the SATs versus another student who never took the exam, I'm going to argue that the student with the 1550 will have a higher shot at getting in. So if you could show the data, that'd be great. But there are some changes this year for SAT subject tests. In particular, Yale and MIT now announced that they're not considering the SAT subject tests at all. Like, you can't even submit them. They're not just optional, but you're not allowed to submit those scores, period. And so it's going to be interesting to see within the next few months and the next year or so if other schools will follow suit.
Great. So aside from standardized testing, are there any other big changes to Ivy League admissions this year that students should be aware of?
Yeah, so there is now a 250-word essay specifically asking how you've been impacted by COVID that the student has to address, which is now new in the application. So there's that change. But besides, the big factor was really the standardized testing optional requirement. Yeah.
Great. So it's a very strange and unpredictable year. So what should seniors who aspire to be admitted to an Ivy League school or another really highly selective institution be doing right now to improve their chances? I know that you've written in the past that a perfect GPA and a great test score aren't really alone or not really enough to necessarily get you in. So what else can students do?
Exactly. So we're in the middle of August now, which really means it's crunch time. Applications are right around the corner. And so I've always argued that a strong application could get a weak student in, And a weak application could keep a strong student out. And we've seen that time and time again. And so given that applications are due right around the corner, the personal statement here is key. So for seniors who are applying this year, I would really double down on really crafting together a compelling narrative and application to reflect your candidacy, reflect your shift in your perspectives, and what you bring to the admissions committee. Because now that all these universities are going test optional, that places greater weight on the applications, the personal statements, the letters of recommendation, and those other factors that will bring to light your profile to the admissions committee.
Thanks again, Eric, for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me, Jackson.
If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And for more interviews like this, please subscribe. Have a great day, everyone.